Mano Ganeshan, Honorable Minister, members of Parliament, members of the head table, ladies and gentlemen. I had agreed to speak in Sinhala when Janaranjana invited me, and I came ready to speak in Sinhala, but I wish to ask for your permission to deviate from that and permit me to speak in English today, as I feel wholly inadequate to be able to communicate what I want to say in the Sinhala language. Sometimes when I stand up, I have the confidence to do it and I do it, but today, unfortunately, I don't have that. And so please permit me to speak in English. Thank you. Firstly, let me congratulate Anida newspaper and my dear friend Janaranjana for completing 1 year. I know how difficult it is to take forward a project like this. Publishing a newspaper is not easy, and one like what he has sought to do is extremely difficult. But I congratulate him for this persistent effort and wish that he goes from strength to strength, and this culture of Anida, what it has introduced, will catch on in the media world, and it will become the dominant culture for us. Since time is short and the topic given is a vision for beyond 2020 for our nation, let me get down straight away to what I want to say. The events of 21st April are so fresh in all our minds. No conversation happens these days without reference to that. We are all asking ourselves the question, what now? Or what next? Because we are stunned by what happened on that day. All of us were so complacent. We were in a fool's paradise, imagining that country was at peace because there was 10 years of no violence, as Professor Uyangona said, no fighting for 10 years. And so we assumed that the country has attained peace. And that was all shattered that morning on Easter Sunday. But if we actually look back, it was to shatter. It certainly would have happened someday, because we hadn't laid the foundation for peaceful coexistence in this country. What we saw was a false edifice, and we were quite happy to carry on with that. 3 decades of violent conflict that emanated from the north and east kept us on our toes, and those were days when we actually sought to address those issues in a very deep and meaningful way. But once fighting was over, we assumed it is now not necessary to address those issues. Although we paid lip service to it. We continuously paid lip service to it. Whenever the issue was raised, we said, yes, the issue is not resolved. We must resolve it. But deep down, we didn't feel that it had to be done. We didn't feel the pressure. That's most unfortunate. It's most unfortunate that something like this had to happen again for us to now reflect back and come to a realization that we necessarily have to go back to certain basic values by which we can live together as a country. Unless we agree on those basic values, we are doomed. We will be doomed. There is no anidda for us. There is not even a heta for us. And we must agree on what those basic values are. And I would mark just one today, and that is equality. Equal citizenship, equality of all citizens is one of those values. There may be others, but I am just flagging one that we must agree upon. Various democratic principles were enunciated. In 2015, January, we had a big movement that actually culminated in January 2015. When the 19th Amendment was passed, yes, there is a lot of shortcoming in that. But I remember repeatedly when the matter was debated in Parliament, repeatedly the assurance was given that this is only a temporary measure. This is only a temporary measure. The Prime Minister said it twice, but I think during the committee stage, Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa, then Minister of Justice, repeatedly said that several times. He said this is only temporary until we adopt a new constitution. Now, why do we talk about a new constitution? Dr. Udagama talked about a social contract. See, we are now looking at constitutional provisions. We are blaming various aspects of it. And it is right to do that also. There are two issues here. One is the written contract. The other is the social underpinnings, the undergirding forces that keep this constitution and other agreements in place. So firstly, we need to agree on those values. And if we have agreed on equality, that all citizens of this country are equal, then that will be reflected. That will be reflected in many forms in the constitution, in the social contract that we sign. We don't have a social contract in this country yet. I've said this even well before at various meetings whole through last year in propagating the new constitution. We don't have a social contract. We've gone village to village saying this in the Sinhala areas, and I have said, Samaja Givisumak Tamat Natha. The Tamil people of this country have yet not agreed to live in one country. This might shock you, but that is true. They have not agreed to any of the constitutions that we have. How do we then say we have a social contract? So that is how fragile. Professor Uyangoda spoke about the fragility. That is how fragile we are as a nation. The most significant minority has yet not given their consent to live together as one country, because they have not agreed to that social contract. They are not parties to that social contract. They are not parties to the 72 Constitution. They are not parties to the 78 Constitution. And that is what we were trying to do through these last 3.5 years. And we were successful. I must say we were successful. To a great extent, there was consensus from all sections. And a draft itself became available. You can't have 100% agreement. But consensus, yes, there was. But there was no political will. There was no political will. Mr. Ganeshan said that from the word go. He said this will not happen. There is no political will. I fought with him, publicly challenged him, because we assumed, well, we can do it because we have all got together. We managed to arrive at consensus, but without any political will to actually make it happen. But that is not all. That's just a document. But underlying there is no agreement. I say there is no agreement with regard to the basic value of equality in this country. Yet, even in that constitution, I remember when the interim report was debated, I said in Parliament, well, I am against the provision of Buddhism being given foremost place, because that is against equality. But yet, if that is what the majority people want, we are willing to concede that. As a notion, we are willing to concede that. I came under huge fire from my own people. Who are you to concede that? You are conceding one of the basic norms. You are saying we are not equal. How can you be our representative? How dare you go there and say we are second class? And I agree to it. That's how they challenge me. And they have a point. Are we agreed that we are all equal in this country? We must decide that. I think we must decide that. That was only one example. But there are many facets. We must agree. We must ask ourselves the question. Are we ready to agree, really, that we are all equal in this country? If not, there is no tomorrow, there is no day after for this country. Thank you.
அந்த ஏரியாவை சேர்ச் பண்ணாங்க. சேர்ச் பண்ண பழைய ஆபீஸ், அது பர்டிகுலர் ஆபீஸே சேர்ச் பண்ணிருக்கீங்க.